Have you ever just poured your entire heart into something that nobody else could ever really see? You know, a whole world that you built just for yourself, a masterpiece in private. Well, this is a story about what happens when that private world becomes terrifyingly, heartbreakingly real. Just imagine spending years, literal years, creating an entire digital kingdom. A world so perfectly designed, so complex, that it became your only real escape from a much harsher reality. And in that world, you weren't just some player clicking a mouse. No, you were a king.
Now what if one morning you woke up and you were actually in it? That fiction was now your reality. Before we dive in, if you enjoy stories like this, please follow the channel and share this video. It genuinely helps this page grow and lets me create more stories just like this one for you.
Okay, so our story begins with a guy named Kai. In the real world, he's a quiet young man, his life pretty much confined by a long-term illness. But online, in the strategy game Dominion Chronicles, he was an absolute legend, the unseen king, the master strategist behind the game's most feared and powerful faction.
And then, the impossible happened. He woke up. Not in his bed, but in a field. In a body that wasn't weak, breathing air that felt real, under a sky that he himself had designed. And standing right there beside him, no longer just pixels and code, but flesh and blood, was Lyra, his most loyal commander.
So together, right then and there, they made a choice. They were going to rebuild his wicked faction, the Kingdom of Asphodel. Only this time, it wasn't going to be a game. This was going to be a real nation, a real home.
Their first real test in this new world wasn't some rival army or a mythical monster. Nope. It was something far more real. Huddled together in the dark woods, they found a starving clan of shadow elves, total outcasts, refugees, with the hope just draining from their eyes. And right here, Kai faced his first true choice as a king. I mean, the cold, hard logic of the game he knew so well demanded he use his precious magic for weapons, for defenses. But this wasn't a game anymore, was it? He did something the wicked king of Asphodel would never, ever do. He created an entire orchard of glowing apples, saving every last one of them from starvation.
And that one act of pure compassion, that became the very foundation of his new kingdom. The Shadow Elves, who had only ever known cruelty, swore their undying allegiance to him. Asphodel wasn't just a faction anymore. It was a sanctuary, a home for the lost. And for Kai, it was the first real family he'd ever had.
But you know, peace is a luxury in any world. The first threat was, well, predictable. A bunch of zealous knights who saw this new kingdom as an abomination. Lyra dealt with them with a brutal, familiar efficiency. It was a problem Kai understood, a problem he knew how to solve. But then, something else crawled out of the forests, an army of monstrous creatures he didn't recognize at all, things that just did not belong in his world. They moved with this unnatural purpose, a whole different kind of logic. They felt scripted.
And in this horrifying flash of clarity, Kai got it. These monsters weren't from his game. They were from Blade Saga, a totally different game, a classic RPG. See, his world was a simulation built on strategy and logic. But this new enemy? They were operating on a completely different set of rules. The rules of heroes, villains, and a pre-written story.
So, to protect his people from this bizarre, unpredictable threat, Kai used his power to summon a new hero for his kingdom, a powerful insectoid guardian known as Vespa, the Hive Matron. But Vespa was so much more than just a unit on a board. She became a true protector, forming this deep, almost instant motherly bond with two orphan shadow elf twins. So now this guardian wasn't just defending a kingdom, she was defending a family. The stakes had never, ever been higher.
In the final battle against the enemy's leader, a fire demon named Ignis, Vespa was just unstoppable. Her power was overwhelming, her victory seemed like a sure thing. Kai watched, so relieved. His strategy had actually worked. They were going to be safe.
And then, a screen flickered in Kai's mind. A status alert he recognized, but not from his game, from an RPG. Ignis, right on the verge of defeat, activated a special ability. A scripted, totally unavoidable move from his own game's code.
And this cold, sickening horror just washed over him. All his knowledge, all his strategic genius, it was useless. He was a master chess player who was suddenly forced to play by the rules of a children's storybook, a story where the ending was already written.
The twins, Ilara and Lyris, were suddenly ripped from their positions, pulled directly into the attack's path like puppets on a string. And Vespa, their protector, was frozen, locked into the same event. They were all just characters in someone else's story now.
Vespa's final act. It wasn't a choice. It was a script. She moved without Kai's command, this final, graceful motion, as she placed herself between the demon's fatal blast and the two children she had come to love. A forced, heroic sacrifice. It was the only move the story would allow.
The battle was won. The enemy was defeated. But Kai's kingdom wasn't saved by strategy. They weren't outsmarted or outmaneuvered. They were simply overridden by the rules of a different game.
And in the aftermath, there was just silence. The Guardian was gone, the children were safe, but they were broken. And Kai, the Master Strategist, was left with the crushing weight of a single, terrible truth. He had built the perfect kingdom in a world that would never truly let him be its king.
He had woken up in his greatest creation, only to discover he was utterly powerless to stop its greatest tragedy. If this story moved you or made you think differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and follow the channel for more stories like this.